agencies and a host of corporate agencies in India and in Asia and in the Middle East. He is currently engaged in a global knowledge initiative on green growth-oriented smart cities and shared services digital platforms for smart cities as a senior specialist with the World Bank. When I spoke to him on the sidelines, he told me that he has visited and seen 54 odd countries, and but since his family is a bigger world to him, he's always home on the weekend. Please put your hands together and welcome Mr. Vikas Kanungo. Thank you. Joining him for this session as another panelist is somebody who is currently heading the enterprise services delivery, responsible for delivering digital transformation and application development programs for government and corporate customers, including e-governance programs across technologies. He comes with 30 odd years of experience in manufacturing, supply chain and IT consulting experience associated with many large Indian IT organizations in India. During his career, he had delivered many global-scale IT transformation programs across the regions. He is also heading the delivery of one of the largest digital transformation programs, namely Urban Tree Information System for the state of Tamil Nadu. Ladies and gentlemen, the Senior Vice President, Head of Delivery India, Bhavan Cyber Tech. Please welcome Ganesh Kannan. Joining Mr. Vikas, Mr. Ganesh is another very brilliant gentleman who is an expert in urban development and sustainable development studies, having closely worked extensively with state and local governments in India. Presently, he is the technical director in the All India Institute of Local Self-Government. Prior to joining this institute, he had worked with SEEDS, Seeds India, as an advisor, and in Delhi and in the Mumbai Industrial Development Corridor. He is spearheading projects in North and West for the All India Institute of Local Self-Government. His strength lies in developing and implementing frameworks for making environment-friendly and sustainable cities. His major projects involve smart city proposals, Equicity, preparation of reports under 5th Delhi Finance Commission, ECBC cell in Karnataka, Chhattisgarh and Kerala, and benchmarking of SMEs in Chhattisgarh. Ladies and gentlemen, he also has another strong point, like as you see him when he comes, he has a very lovely walrus moustache. Please welcome Paschim Tiwari. Also joining him, then ladies and gentlemen, is someone who is currently heading the e-governance solutions globally and responsible for delivering e-governance digital transformation for government customers across many regions. He comes with more than 30 years of deep experience in urban domain and experience in delivering large-scale programs for central, for state and local governments. During his long career, he has been associated with NIC, with HCL Technologies, and closely associated with the World Bank on various digital initiatives. He is presently the head for e-governance solutions and delivery, Bhavan Cyber Tech, and he is none other than Tharmaraj, Mr. Tharmaraj V. Come on, put your hands together for Mr. Tharmaraj. And also joining them, ladies and gentlemen, is a very young and brilliant, talented professional who is the program director at WeGo. We've seen him yesterday as well, the World Smart Sustainable Cities Organization, whose secretariat is based in Seoul, South Korea. Prior to WeGo, he was a deputy director at Korea's Local Government Officials Development Institute, and before that, he led the outreach team at the Green Climate Fund. He has also worked in Sweden, in Turkey, in Japan, and the United States of America, where he was born and raised. An advocate for happy cities for smart people, he is now here to support the transformation of cities to smart, sustainable cities across South Asia. He comes from the land of the man called Sai, who gave the world a great song called Gangnam Style. So let's welcome him in style. Ladies and gentlemen, Albert Graves joining the panel. Yeah, you can do perhaps later. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, a collective round of applause for the panelists. And it's over to the moderator for the session, Mr. Vikas Kanunpur. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this first session on day one. I guess we heard a lot yesterday. We talked about how do we accelerate achieving sustainable development goals, what are the challenges in that. And I'm very happy that today on this first session we will be discussing solutions, the solutions which have already been implemented. We would be largely focusing on the digital solutions because as you know, irrespective of which goal you are trying to achieve, the use of new technologies, we call them Industry 4.0 technologies, which are very different from the ICTs we had during the earlier days. When it all started about 2 decades back, ICT is seen largely in context of e-governance, delivering public services. But now I think after 2 decades, everything has changed. We are in the era of Industry 4.0 revolution, where we're talking about sensors sending you data instead of human beings. We're talking about robots doing surgeries and the bots telling you use. So we will have to totally rethink the way we utilize technologies, especially when we're talking about accelerating achievement of SDGs. I guess the first thing we will have to do is to measure everything we are doing, each of the activities. That is where the role of data comes into play. So we need to now measure quickly as to where we are on each of these indicators. And the data which basically earlier used to come only from the governments alone, now in this era of digital economy, the data comes from multiple sectors. Not only just the people, but also from the sensors. So in this session, we will talk about some of the solutions. Fortunately, most of the panelists are in one way or the other working as partners with the World Bank. Some of them have created solutions for World Bank funded projects, and I guess we partner with them globally on the smart city issues. With that, I'll just give you a very brief presentation about, I represent the World Bank Digital Development Global Practice. So I'll briefly talk about what we are doing in India and globally, and then maybe talk about this session where we are largely talking about integration between the physical systems and the cyber systems. So if there is somebody who would okay, so World Bank basically we are in India I think almost since independence. As of now, the World Bank supports about 120 projects in the country with a total portfolio of 2018 to 22 to be more than $27 billion. We work in multiple areas, but the cross-cutting themes are climate smart engagement, gender gaps, and harnessing technologies. These 3 themes are basically for the World Bank common across all the projects we do. As I said, I represent a practice called Digital Development Global Practice. We have two kinds of projects. One is the portfolio of the practice itself, which largely works around issues on policies for digital interventions. But we also provide cross support to lots of sectors, including urban, rural development, health, education, etc. The total portfolio of the digital projects is about $1.28 million. And we largely work in the areas of helping country governments create digital infrastructure and policies, create solutions, and also digital partnerships. So these are, I don't know if you can read, these are some of the smart cities, because today we will be limiting our discussion to the smart cities domain, which pertains to SDG 11, which is creating sustainable cities and communities. So these are some of the projects which the World Bank is supporting globally, along with our sister organization IFC. Coming back to India, we have over last 2 decades created multiple systems, the digital systems. Some of them, I guess, are already here. You will be hearing in detail about the project we did in Tamil Nadu. In addition to that, World Bank has also supported Digital India program, which was earlier called NEGP, and we are now working with Government of India to evolve a strategy and a policy framework for Digital India 2.0, which would be around these new media technologies. On smart cities, we have a knowledge platform. All of you are welcome to basically go look at this platform, which is hosted at ictsforgreengrowth.in, which is lots of case studies, especially from South Korea. And this is an interactive e-book which we created on this. Now I will just come to what we are going to talk about today. As you know, we started long back with Industry 1.0 revolution, where we talked about mass manufacturing, and there were many intermediary stages, the revolution 3 being about digitization, and now we are in an era where we have moved to something called disruptive technologies, which means that you might have heard in many deliberations earlier where they said ICT is just an enabler. I guess with Industry 4.0 technologies, that is totally changed. The digital technologies are now seen as disruptive technologies, which means that in order to leverage the benefits of these technologies, you would have to totally change the way you have been working. It's not just about change management in your governance systems, but it is about looking at how you can disrupt the current mode of working and basically adopt new ways of working using digital technologies. So earlier, as you know, even India's smart city program is taken as an example. When the program was conceived, we thought that each of these cities, these 100 smart cities which were selected, would create their independent solutions. So each city gave a proposal, they got selected, and when they started working, they started creating their own solutions in terms of their command and control centers, their intelligent transport systems. But the fact is that you cannot work in silos. Each city trying to invent their own solutions is very difficult because the capacity at the city level is very low. And with this industry 4.0, everything has moved from a pipeline-based concept to a platform-based concept. You don't have hundreds of independent e-commerce platforms for each of the commodities anymore. You know, you have something like Amazon, which is a platform concept. It doesn't matter whether you're selling tea or you're selling an aeroplane. Everybody can participate. So, on the back end, you have a platform with common components which allow for multiple agencies to not only sell, from a concept of a consumer and a supplier, we have moved into a concept of prosumer, where a person who is a consumer can also be a producer of certain services or products. So I think the biggest change that has happened is we moved from this pipeline kind of a concept to a platform concept, which means that it doesn't matter the multiple players. They might have their different objectives, but they can work together through a platform. Another big change which has happened with the platform concept is that we have moved from a supply side kind of an ecosystem to a demand side ecosystem. So that's the second big change which has happened. So if you work in this era, I guess we will have to radically change the way we work, and I think Government of India has rightly recognized it, and they have prepared a new policy. You might have seen blueprints we're talking about now, especially in the area of smart cities. We're talking about building something called National Urban Innovation Stack, which means that lots of services, say for example, each of the cities are now using sensors, the IoT devices, be it video cameras or air quality monitors or weather stations. If each city were to buy solutions to interact with sensors, we will end up spending 100 times for the same solution. So what Government of India is doing is they have identified some common solutions such as IoT engine, the data analytics systems, the dashboards, and also some of the common services around which a national digital stack as a common public good would be built and will be then made available to each of the cities who might wish to utilize this. So we will, I guess, talk a little bit more about it, and we have some of our panelists who have solutions to that. But I'll just skip this. So this is how basically we are looking at utilizing a stack approach. You have multiple applications, some of the common components. For example, in India we have something called Digital India Stack, which is a combination of your Aadhaar, which is your biometric identity, the payment service through which the payments can either be made or received. And most importantly, I think, I don't know how many of you know, but India is one of the pioneering countries to have who have implemented something called a consent management architecture. So we have a digital platform where the end users can manage their consent for utilization of their data. So at one point of time you might decide that to get a particular service you want to share some of your data, but then you can withdraw that consent later. So this entire consent management architecture as a digital stack, which is open standard, is now being implemented and is available to all the government agencies in the country. They can just use it rather than having to develop something on their own. And finally, as I said, when we're talking about data, we have to talk about the integration of physical systems and the cyber systems. So we are in an area where we're talking about, when we talk about smart cities, we talk about smart transport systems, smart water network, which actually means that there is no distinction now between the physical system and an IT system. They are integrated with each other. Most of the times, for say water levels or forest fires, I don't have to depend on people. There are sensors who can send me the information. So this cyber physical integration which we will be talking today. And as I said, we have all the panelists here are would be talking about solutions. We heard a lot about what are the challenges yesterday, but today we will be focusing on solutions. With that, I guess I'll just end my presentation here and would now invite the panelists. So maybe first, can I invite Ms. Pashim Tiwari, who is the Technical Director from All India Institute of Local Self-Government, to basically share with us the work they have been doing in providing capacity building solutions for the smart cities and also other local governments.
Data slides, so I think if you do this way, maybe a lot of people can watch whatever is there. Not many people use it. So, I think Vikas has very interestingly showcased a lot of things which World Bank is doing and India is doing. But I think one of the things which we have to relate to is, how is urbanization getting affected and why do we need to do this? I mean, we have systems which were analog in nature, so to speak, and linear in nature, and they were working very well for the last 70 years, well, more or less. But so I'll just put it into the context that what are the problems? Why is it that we need this? So as he said, it's demand driven and not supply led. But the problem is it is also top down, not bottoms up. So why do we need to change this is also because we need to bring in the last man standing into the system and make sure that he or she also has a say in the system. So it's like, it's bottom up. Secondly, you have to focus on the ends and not just the means. Right now it's about processes only and that has its own challenges. So we need to make sure that outcomes are something which have to be realized, not that the project has to be executed and finished. And today, right now, most of the times it is about how the tender has to be done, how the, how much grant I have to get, and how much, money needs to be spent in this budget, and so on and so forth. So it's about projects, but it is not about outcomes, and I think that is something which we need to focus on. So it is outcome-led, not project-driven. You have to build capacity, not dependence, and that's the big challenge also which is there. And so if you keep feeding fish, and that is what you are doing to states and municipal corporations, they will never learn how to fish. And we need to make sure that people start fishing on their own, rather than I keep feeding them and making them dependent all the time on centers and state budgets and so on and so forth. And there is a lot of criticism on smart city, but the point is that smart city is something which was an endeavor to do that. Basically, try and make sure that you give a corpus of 1,000 crores to a city and ask them to convert it into 10,000 crores rather than actually say that I have a 1,000 crore grant and I need to just spend it. Unfortunately, it didn't happen exactly like that, and it's still work in progress, but there is a huge behavior change which happened on ground, and that needs to be documented also. The other thing which has to be done is that you have to activate GAC. So that's government, industry, academia, and community. So you have to have all the four participants activated rather than government alone. Right now, everybody is dependent upon government to do infrastructure building and all those things, and that is not something which is working out very well, as we have seen. So that is something which we need to figure out. We have to measure performance and not utilization. As I said, right now, government has only one thing: utilization certificates. If you have money sent, you give the utilization certificate, you get the second grant. But if you keep doing that all the time, you will never measure performance, and you will never look at the performance side of it, and that is something which needs to be figured out very importantly. And communities, which is citizens, require performance. They don't require utilization. Nobody is bothered about how much money you spend. If it hasn't worked out in terms of giving me 24-hour water supply, it doesn't matter whether you spend 36,000 crores or you spend 3,600 crores, because people are not really counting money. They are counting what is delivered to them at the end of the day. And lastly, it is about credit versus grant. Right now it's all about saying that we give you so much grant and then you have to utilize it, but that needs to be changed. Now this is something which you'll be wondering. This is what the government is deciding and thinking about at this point of time. And Kunal Kumar was supposed to come here. He hasn't come, but this is something which they are really thinking about and actually making their new missions working for this particular thing. Last is basically, you have to look at innovation and integration both. There are silos at this point of time, and they need to be somehow converted into an integrated system. All of this eventually gives you a urbanization system or a city, eventually, which needs to work. So, in that terms, what the government did was that they looked at 4 particular things, and which is ease of living. So you're looking at ease of living, and there are about 110 indicators in ease of living index or so broadly. I'm not sure how many exactly remembering. There are economic growth and livelihood opportunities, sustainability, and then you have responsive governance which needs to take place. So what I'm trying to say over here is I'm bringing that context that why do we need that disruption to take place and take place very fast for all of this to happen. And all of this needs to eventually deliver on the line below, which is saying policy, reforms, finance, institution, technology, data, planning, design, capacity and innovation. All of them needs to be addressed together. So for giving a particular thing in context, you have a Swachh Bharat mission which is taking place. What we need to do is ease of living, clean, sustainable, responsive governance. How do you do it? You measure, you have specific issues which you take place, whether it's attainable, relevant or time bound, and then you look at ODF, ODF plus, ODF plus plus, you have garbage free city index, you have municipal performance, and those are the tools which you utilize to get them delivered to the citizens on the ground. So that's a system by which this whole thing works, and this is just one example, but this has to be taken up in every one of the possible examples later on. So which has to be monitored, which has to be looked at from a central perspective. So it needs to be technology driven. There are dashboards which are required. There is a dissemination which needs to take place, and you have to look at the progress, achievements as well as public feedback. All of this again requires an integrated systems, and this is what I think what he was talking about in terms of a stack approach, in terms of a platform-based approach is required, because this cannot be managed for 4,378 cities. So you have to look at that number. We have at present, these are actually cities which have been identified and which are measured right now by the government of India. So 4,378 cities. At present, how many are you looking at? 500 urban cities, 100 smart cities. But what about the rest of the cities? Are we going to tomorrow say that I can't include them? Though government works on the 80-20 formula. So most of these 500 cities actually take care of 80% of the population. But are the 20% of the population not important for us? Are we saying that? Are the resources not enough for that? No. that is not true. It is just that to include them takes so much effort, so much bureaucratic systems that it is not possible to include them. So you take the least possible amount which you can cover most of the population by. But we need to eventually do to all of these 4,378 cities, and then your problems of migration, all those things gets covered automatically. So for doing that, you need a platform-centric approach. So capacity building is something which I want to touch because, AISG does a lot of capacity building. This is one of our fortes, and we are part of the system which is going to be doing what is called the National Urban Learning Platform. NIUA is also here. So they will be leading this effort, and we are partnering with them to do that. And in which you would have regional center of urban excellence, and you would have technology-based systems which are there, so virtual universities, and multi-stakeholder approach. So every institution which is available in India would get integrated into that, which is dealing with urban systems. So 100 innovation zones created with the help of 100 institutions or stakeholders which are there. I think what I'll do is I'll skip this part because I was going to do a particular section of ease of doing business, but I think there is not enough time. What we do get to how this solution architecture needs to be there. So earlier, basically how you are going to divide the whole thing is the city needs to drive. Earlier, center needed to drive. State needed to coordinate. State is only become an enabler in the new system. City used to implement, but now center is only facilitating. So, you're flipping the whole system in which you are able to get information from the city, and those cities then need to be connected, or they need to be data driven, and that is the reason why you require the urban disruption or the stack approach, which needs to take care of all of this system too. So all 4,378 city government of India plans to execute or get onto this platform in, let's say, about 2 years' time. That's a challenge which is there, but that is something which is being tried out at this point of time. For that, how do you do that? So you have a national urban innovation hub which is being created. I think at present it is being a national urban learning hub. So why do you say national urban learning hub? Because capacity has to be looked at not from the perspective of only giving training or providing training to the municipal corporation. So what about registries of indices which is there? Registries means, for example, Aadhaar is a registry which basically takes care of the identity of a human being or an Indian citizen. You have a GPS which gives you a registry of location where you are located. It gives you a physical location in the city or in India. You have UPI which gives you a registry of indices which basically look at where the payment is taking place, who is giving that payment to. Similarly, urban registry needs to be created, which at present through GIS, we are doing for all the 500 cities. In Amrut, there are all 500 cities which are being now converted to a GIS-based master plans. That will give you a asset, enable you to get your asset management system in every city in place. For that, that is something which is part of this particular system which will happen. The second piece which is there is, so that piece is something which is going to do, which is called the citizen-centric smart governance piece. And I think our friends from Tamil Nadu are going to explain that. Basically, how do you make sure that the whole of a state comes onto a single platform which have modular systems available which can be utilized by every citizen in whatever they want to do. So for example, I want to register a birth and death in the city. There is a module available for doing that, and that is integrated into the whole system which is there. So if there is a birth and death, there is a, after all there are certain subsidies which the city is also giving to that person, which are also integrated. There is a water connection which he has taken. There are multiple levels of other engagement which he does. There is a car which is registered to him. All of these aspects when interlinked can actually provide flags or a person ability, the governance people, the ability to act fast and deliver on citizens much faster. So you have the registries which is at the bottom, enabling processes and open data infrastructure or open infrastructure which is at the bottom. But above that you have the core services infrastructure. Then you have an urban solutions platform which is there. So as I said, there are a number of modules which are going to be there and which enables what? Hundreds and thousands of solutions which can be taken by private sector as well as public sector as well as government. So that becomes an area which enables private people to also participate in the whole system. It's not, as I said, GIAC. You are not, dependent only on the government. Now everybody can take part in the whole, in the whole of this process. So government and state is only an enabler and provision of providing, enabling system for everybody to act on. So the SAT approach, which everybody, is going to be talking about. So I just, try to explain that in a much more simpler manner for everybody to understand that what does it mean. For enabling any kind of a stack and in a governance atmosphere which is basically federated in nature, by that I mean, you have cities which have their own public representatives who want to act in the way they wish, the city should progress. You have a state which also has a certain level of importance and they need to do their own stuff. And you have the center. Both of these, center and state, actually, if you see, the urbanization process is basically not in the concurrent list or in the central list. It is in the state list. So how do you figure those things out? These standard specifications and certification is something which can control and make sure that all of this thing is together. That is again being, at present being worked out. There are a large number of committees which are already formed and which are making sure that the standards for urban governance is basically set. The system, the principles of the stack has to be what? It needs to be interoperable so that the federated system does not have a problem. It needs to evolve because we have a very large, we have a city which are only made up of 5,000 and which is, there are cities or the metros which have a population of 2 crores. Eventually, we expect those cities to also grow. It needs to evolve to new practices, new design principles, new technologies. We have 4G now, we have 5G. There will be other systems which will come into place, and so it has to be something which it evolves. It needs to be scalable, which means when the city grows, it should be able to scale up based upon the city population immediately. It needs to be minimalistic, which means people should be able to achieve results with doing as less as possible on their end. They should not be able to, you have to fill in 10 forms and 20 places and then you reach to a particular solution, and that is not something which is desirable. It needs to be ecosystem driven, which means all the participants or the people who are there needs to take care of it, and it needs to be something which is secure. As he said, we have already a system which is consent driven. India is one of the few countries which have this, and that helps us. India Stack, how does it fare? So we have a number of layers which are there, and these are the systems which are already in place. And I think there will be number of our participants who are going to tell you what more is happening. So I think I'll leave that to them. And this is the larger, this is from a blue book of Government of India which is there already existing. I think this shows the whole system in its totality, and we have every one of these aspects already taken care of. Right. I think this is one of my last slides which I will put. So citizen needs to be at the center of this whole system. At present the system is where government is at the center of the system. So it needs to make sure that we are the people who are driving this whole system in a way which is helpful for us. Academia, residents, visitors, business, civil society. This is the second layer which is available. It is, you move out and departments come into picture. Then you have the service providers which are supposed to take care of all these things. And lastly, it is the state, central and the national leadership which drives this. So we are, as I said, this system can only be enabled through a stack approach. There is no other possible solution possible in the existing way in which system as usual. We cannot achieve this. We don't have the resources, we don't have the manpower, we don't have the capacity until and unless we bring in a stack approach for us to execute this. So, which are the pieces which are already in place? One of the pieces which is there is what is called the IUDX, Indian Urban Data Exchange. It is all very easy to say that all the cities will be working together, but how do they do that? So we need to make sure, and this is being done by Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore. 6 cities are already piloting this. It is called the Indian Urban Data Exchange. Every city would be part of the Indian Urban Data Exchange in the coming future, which means that all their data is possible to be aggregated at a place, one at the state level and second at the national level. Already in Government of India, there is an observatory which is there, which is monitoring almost 100 cities, which is the smart cities. But they need to have an architecture which needs to make sure that the data which is being sent by Rajasthan and the data which is sent by Tamil Nadu and the data which is sent by J&K needs to be on the same page, right? They need to understand each other. So for that, what you need is a backbone architecture, backbone structure, which would help it to translate into meaningful, easily readable data. So that's IUDX for you, and this is happening at present. How do you procure, so at present there is a GEM platform in which you can, Government of India, you can buy any equipment, any piece of machinery, and it is on the same platform. Everybody can buy at the same price. But is it true for the services? No, not really. Today, every consultant has a certain price, and they pay for a service, or there are various tenders. So, what people were trying to do in here or in this particular platform is to make sure that their services also can be standardized to a large extent, because most cities, and this is a major problem if you see a city of Agra versus city of Jhansi versus city of Chennai, procure their services from an entirely different mechanism, and they have different standards because they have different capacities also. So if we can figure out a system, and this is being done also, where we can actually procure services on a common platform or a common basis, then you can achieve results much faster, much better, and at the same quality across India. And that's something which is also being tried through smart procurement. So I think I'll end over here. I think I've given you enough food for thought. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Bashim. I think it is rightly set the context to move to an ecosystem approach and a marketplace approach. Now, whatever we are planning to do in India, I think to a certain extent has been done by many of the countries. And one of the countries which has been consistently at number 1 position in the Smart Cities Index globally is South Korea. We had heard the speaker from DIGO yesterday talking about services like, say, for example, the OWL bus service, which purely works on data. So it just picks up the density of mobile phones in certain places, and the events are happening, and automatically schedules a bus service which goes through that area in the night hours, off-peak hours. I think similarly they have been using their video cameras which are during the daytime used to monitor traffic, but in the night the cameras just turn the other way and monitor water levels in the Han River and the forest fires. So like that, there are lots of innovative solutions. You might have heard about U-Cities platform of Korea. I would now like to invite our next speaker, Mr. Albert Graves, who's from World Smart Sustainable Cities Organizations, to share with you, he shared the bus service yesterday, but more solutions from Korea, which we can look at adding to our marketplace, which Government of India is building.
Thank you for the lovely introduction. I hardly need to even present now. You gave such a good description of what Korea is doing. But one of the great things about these types of conferences is that we bring in stakeholders from around the world. And so I want to take this opportunity to show you some of the best practice cases that's both in our own network as well as abroad. As I said yesterday, WeGo is an international association. We serve as a platform for not just local governments, but also for the solution providers and institutions. We are working with SDG 11, and this is very relevant because there's a lot of money in the SDGs, and how do you motivate the corporate sector to be interested in providing solutions to cities? Obviously, there has to be a profit, and there very much is one, and also expected to create hundreds of millions of new jobs by 2030, so something very important for us to acknowledge. Our corporate network is just over 30 different companies. The majority of them are small, medium enterprises, but we are also targeting multinational corporations as well as startups, and we do that through different ways. Because we are located in Korea, we are not a Korean organization, but still we have access to a lot of the local market. So around half of our corporate members are Korean. They provide a lot of different solutions, but we also have some from the UK, Denmark, China, and others. T-Money right there is the company that developed the public transportation payment card system. So in Korea, no matter where you are, you can use one card, or even just your credit card. It's linked because they have shared platforms between the government as well as the private sector. And no matter where I am, I can go on a train, I can go on a bus, and everything is linked. It calculates how long I've been on what, how far I've been, and then it adjusts the payment accordingly, so that I don't really have to worry about where I touch in and where I touch out. Collectively, our corporate members are working in a variety of different smart city areas, and as you can see from the list, there really is pretty much no limit to what a smart city can mean in terms of solutions. These are just some of the cases from around the world that I just want to show you. And I myself am not a technical expert, so I'm going to have to look at my notes here. Wuhan you may already know from the coronavirus, but hopefully you know it for something else. They have a traffic light management application. This is one of the solutions that they developed with a smartphone app that enabled the officers of their traffic management bureau to manually manage traffic lights, so that they could clear the traffic and keep it moving. So the approach is unique because the app synthesizes the information that they gather from road sensors, network traffic lights, and taxi drivers also, to inform the Bureau on the traffic situation in the city. And what the app does for police officers, it allows them to manually control the traffic lights without having to go to the control box. So they can identify bottlenecks and problematic intersections, and then they can make more informed decisions in managing their city's traffic. There's also Lima, the capital of Peru, which has a portable water generating billboard. This is quite interesting. The region actually has a scarcity of water. So one of their universities embedded 5 condensers into a billboard, and those condensers were powered by the city's electricity. And so like air conditioning units, the condensers are cooler than the air outside, And so when the outside air meets the cooled surface, the air cools and then the water vapor condenses into water. So that's reverse osmosis. And with the purification through that process, the water then flows down into a storage tank, and then it's hooked up to a faucet, which then residents can access. So that billboard has actually generated almost 100 liters of water a day and almost 10,000 liters of water in a span of 3 months. Now, obviously, it doesn't solve every problem of the water scarcity in Lima, but it does prove to be scalable and has inspired a lot of different entrepreneurial spirit toward these types of solutions. In Los Angeles, they have a smart street lighting management system. The city actually required a system that could allow them to remotely control the street lights and then also accurately report how much energy each light is consuming. And then these also have to obviously be easy to install, and then they have to be flexible enough to adapt a broader smart city plan, so to be connected to many other parts of the city. And so the city installed microphones on connected streetlights to collect all the noise data at the street level. And with that data, they can raise public awareness about the noise pollution, and then also have quantitative evidence for how the city can then mitigate that. This is a slide I showed yesterday. It shows some of our member cities' cases. As the moderator kindly explained, the Aula is a night service that uses PPPs with the telecommunication companies to provide an after-hour service or transportation in the city when the regular public transportation is closed. We have a call center in Seoul, which has a lot of different, it's kind of a one-stop shop where citizens can go and access different services. An M-voting app, which I also talked about, where citizens can voice their opinions on different policies. And then some other things from other members, like WeBear, which was, actually I haven't added up that one. This one. WeBear actually was the winner of our Citypreneurs competition. I'll be talking about that in the next parallel session, right before lunch. And they just have these small sensors which cost about $10 per sensor. Very easy to install. You put it up in the subway car, and then it monitors the air quality there, which is all connected to an app, which can then aggregate the data and then make conclusions from that. And also with AI technology, it's able to then make some regulation with the purification of the air. Hezum is one of our corporate members, and they do sunlight maps through 3D mapping. This is a solar map service. It estimates the variables surrounding solar energy potentials for new solar business owners and investors. And so this company also develops software that can predict yields and then detect the failures from existing solar systems, and it utilizes cutting-edge machine learning technology. Clue is one of the members in Indonesia and in Jakarta, and this is something that the city itself developed themselves. And then I did talk about this yesterday too. Since 2009, WeGo has been helping 15 different cities with project implementation through feasibility studies and pilot projects. But we also try to make sure that it doesn't stop there. Obviously, you don't just want a pilot project, you want a citywide implementation, and that's what we are helping cities do too. Among some of the products and services that we offer, I was talking about the Smart City Driver, which attempts to implement citywide projects in both our member cities as well as smart cities around the world. The Activator is one tool that we use for that. This is developed by a US company. We paid a good sum for the license for that. It has different components where cities can put in their information, and then we can use data analytics in the back end to push out a lot of different conclusions about that data. And then cities can also go into the Activator. They can start their projects from the Activator. So they can put in all of the information. The system can then help guide them through the process of going through their projects so that they can make sure that it's done in an organized and tested way. And then after that, with Exchange, they can go and search as a repository. They can find the best practice cases from around the world. So they can, one of the most important things is not learning about the successes, but also about learning about the failures. So through this platform, they can see the challenges that other cities had to face with similar projects and learn from those mistakes. and even get in touch with those cities or even the solution providers so that they can also work with them to make sure that their project is successful. CPS is a civic participation system that we developed in-house at WeGo, and this is particularly good for cities in least developed countries. This is a multi-level communication platform that cities can use with their citizens, and this I also touched on yesterday. So thank you very much. I will yield the floor to my other colleagues.
Thank you so much, Albert. You saw lots of solutions which Korea is developing, and I also have a good news to share. The Korean government has recently launched something called a K-City program. So if any of the cities from South Asia would want these types of solutions to be replicated, they could provide an assistance of about 0.75 million per city, against which they would send their technical experts to prepare detailed project reports for the cities. And also the KSP program basically allows cities to do a knowledge exchange program with South Korea and go and see how they have implemented. Incidentally, the people who are running that program were supposed to be part of this session, but because of the coronavirus scare, they couldn't come. But any of the cities from any South Asian countries, including India, who might be interested in availing this program, may get in touch with the organizers. Now I think in the beginning I talked about the fact that each of the cities will win the smart city programs do not have to struggle individually to create multiple solutions. I think one such example is the project which World Bank has funded in Tamil Nadu, where all the municipalities of the states are on a single system. So, even for the citizens, when you move from one city to another city, you are essentially dealing with the same interface. So, I think we heard lots of multilateral agencies, but the fact is that at the end of the day, the biggest partner who would help us achieve SDGs would be industry. So we have with us today the company which created the solution for the bank project. I guess we have Mr. Ganesh Kanan and Mr. Dharmarajan, who belong to the same organization who did create the solution for the bank funded project. They would be sharing with you the entire solution and also demonstrate how multiple cities can use a single system, which is the stack approach we are talking about. These types of systems at the national level would be helpful.
All leaders within here from the rest of the world, speakers, delegates, my friends. At the outset, I would like to thank the All India Institute of Local Self-Government for providing an opportunity to be part of this symposium. This is going to be a joint presentation by myself and Mr. Dharmaraj, who is a deep domain expert in urban local body transformation programs. See, I come from a company named Bhavan Sagatech. We are proud and pride to say, implementing here the largest e-transformation program for the Tamil Nadu state, which comprised borrowing the Chennai city, bring on board the digital platform across the state. Just a quick snapshot of the corporate. We are ISO certified, same level 5 and ISO 27K certified company, which is part of a larger group headquartered in Oman. A 17 billion bond group. Of course, it's a family group, privately held, unlisted. Bowen Cybertech is an India Incorporated corporation with around 3,000 employees, present in 4 subcontinents, 20 countries, got around 3,000 employees on board with several thousands of SMEs to come on board to support us on deep domain expertise, supporting 450 universities across the United States of America. The group is 7 years old. Of course, BCP is incorporated 20 years before. We are primarily a transformation enabling and transforming company built on digital products and services for the customers across the globe. This is just the footprint of how we are located across the globe. We are technology agnostic. Name it, any technology, we are there. Any service offering, we are there. So, we'll have the pride of stating, we have implemented, besides the Tamil Nadu e-governance program, sorry for the quality of the slide. Decade before, we have implemented the country level citizen payment programs for the country of Egypt, where every payment that's made to any citizen, every citizen, is handled by the digital platform built by our organization. Likewise, in the country of Bahrain, there is this entity called e-government. All the stakeholders, business bodies, people, any payment, every payment, it's handled through the digital solution built by Bowen. Adding to that, in the state of Dubai, for the Dubai municipality, we built the solution to handle all the municipality services, payment of receivables. It's up and running since 10 years, of course, all would agree. Dubai is the top rated #1 ECP in the world. Now coming to the main story. This is the story of e-transformation for the urban local body across Tamil Nadu, the southern part of India. Just to give the social snapshot of what is Tamil Nadu all about. It is the second largest GDP in the country with approximately 300 billion. It is growing above par to the Indian GDP growth. Got about 50 billion contribution from forex exports to the Indian GDP. It's one of the forerunning states in terms of adopting, implementing urban solution to the state. And again, it's the largest, fourth largest populated state, and again 50% of the state is urban population. Looking at it now, when the entire world is heading towards 60% target by year 2030, we are there, reach the 60% level of urbanization. We began this project during the year 2015. Thanks to the government of Tamil Nadu for initiating, thanks to World Bank for volunteering for funding this project. It took 2 years for us to complete the pilot and rollout, and then we went into adopting two-pronged approach of deploying this. One was primarily the citizen-centric solution, what was critical for collecting revenue. The second was automating, digitizing the internal operation of the e-governance or the urban local body organization. What made the state to move to the transformation program? Primarily, the people are not confident of what the ULB is doing today. Anything, it takes time. There's long time taken to offer any service. Funds are not deployed effectively. There is delay in every or any project that's taken by the local body. There's no inclusive governance. Every department works as silos. It takes time. Many times our plans are failure. There's also lack of demand handling. Any complaint given to the bodies, it is either not handled properly or it gets dropped to the crack. There's always a normal investment, no investment. What people want, it is not invested by the local body. At the same time, what people do not like, there's investment coming in. So there's an improper allocation of funds resulting in the poor growth of the state. Coming to the concern of the local bodies, it's absolutely disintegrated. When it comes to the visibility of finance, the leadership of the urban local body could not understand where we stand in terms of the balance sheet of P&L or the exchequer level of the department. There's always a leakage of revenue. What used to be done manually, it takes time. Many a time now, the last quarter, last month, ends up in a pile up in our revenue collections. In the case of this, it happens on a periodic basis, resulting in a smoother cash flow for the department. There is an effective budget planning that could not be done. There is always an overrun of the project. Invariably, the complexity involved. And also, because of the manual operations, the productivity was always right. We need to deploy more people, resulting in high cost of operation. I stopped here due to one party of and hand over to Mr. Damaraj, who will deep dive on the our solutions.
Thank you, sir. First of all, good morning to everyone. Thanks to All India Institute of Local Government for this opportunity to share our experience. Here I will take a few slides on how we have approached to implement the single solution across the state of Tamil Nadu, including 11 major corporations and 214 municipalities. Slide please. Go to slide number 12. Basic idea to bring or implement this type of system in urban local bodies is tough. It's a tough job, whether it's for an administrator or even an elected representative, whether it's a president or a mayor. So what are the bottlenecks actually? Basically data. Our registers, our manuals all incomplete or updated whenever we feel. It's not actually audited concurrently or even 2 years or 3 years. Other bottleneck is we have in municipality, we have the people of, we can say that they are not actually qualified up to the level what they are doing the job. Fourth bottleneck is municipal employees are field oriented officials. They may not be available at their desk. Sixth one is the official, the department or monitoring authority or a mayor or president. They always depend officials, lower level official for the information or data whenever it is required. As they don't have the proper data in their hand, they always give the wrong information. So the data plays major role. And finally the fund, how to mobilize the fund. So if you have my message to the mayors or commissioners or revenue officials or accounts or elected representative presidents or councillors is that these are the bottlenecks. If you have data in your fingertips, no need to depend any official or anybody at any time. You can able to. So the idea is that what is your financial strength as on today? Your corporation. How you are going to take up more other projects? How much loan you have taken? How much principal you are paying monthly? How much interest you are supposed to pay? If you have the data, means if you are able to justify your financial strength at any time, you will be able to implement such type of solution in your corporation or a municipality very easy. And keep your data, because data is the main source for ICT implementation. Okay, so idea of this slide is that bring services to the citizens so that, and the important point is affordable cost. Right? Second thing is what we did. We did end-to-end implementation across the 135 local bodies in the state. and capacity building. We have trained more than 30,000 people frequently, not one time, frequently, and we have migrated data from Oracle to Microsoft. And once in a 6 months, we are getting the third party certification, vulnerability test, load testing, performance testing, because these are the basic terms of state data center. And we have implemented all the infrastructure, nearly 33 servers in the state data center Chennai and the data recovery center. Next slide is I am going to talk about what are the functionalities we have covered in that. We have named as the urban tree. This software we have named, the government of Tamil Nadu has named as the urban tree, because all the services are the part of this tree. This include 29 major functionalities which are part of our local bodies. Work under basically registration, issue of certificate, and here we are using no objection certificate and non-availability certificate of any citizen. Nearly every municipality or corporation, we have maintained last 100 years of data. You won't believe it. In Tamil Nadu, we have all the register. We have engaged third parties to capture all the data, whatever they scan, and we kept all. We have given an instruction to each local body to scan all old register, kept it in digital. Using the digital PDF format, we have engaged third parties to capture all the data into the system. So, second one is Citizens Facilitation Center. We have established the citizen should go minimum 1 or 2 kilometers. He should not visit the municipality or corporation at all, because he is uneducated. He should not have time. So we have established number of facilitation center, what we call Citizen Facilitation Center. That is in addition to the Common Service Center that is implemented by the government of India across the state. Okay, where what he will get? He will avail all the services in the citizen facilitation. Then property tax, fixing the tax for your property, that is for your building, generation of demand notice, payment of taxes, extension and enhancement of the property taxes, and what are the defaulter list. These are the main parts. I will time person I will be covering only major features of the each functionality. Property. This is applicable to property tax, water supply, underground drainage system, land tax, and profit. All tax system revenue items will be having all the features. Water supply, connection and tax collection related, disconnection and reconnection. Then same is applicable for underground. We have nearly 50 lakhs as assets in our data. Next one is that non-tax. This is actually asset belongs to the local body. We are giving for the rent and collection of rent. This covers this functionality. Building plan, issue of architect license, layout approval, building and planning permit approval. This is actually integrated with AutoCAD based solution. Here, the actual drawing is in AutoCAD. This will be scanned by our software. If any deviation as per the law of our building rules and regulation, that diagram will be rejected immediately in the counter itself. Once it is approved, means complying with all the act and rules, then it will be processed into the system. Then we are issuing the building and planning permit to the citizen. We have engaged number of licensed surveyors across the state at each local body level. Trade licenses, issuing and renewal of licenses, grievances. Yes, any citizen can complain any service pertaining to the local body from anywhere, that whether in the form of digital or paper or email or whatever it is, this will be entered into the system. It will go to the respective employee of the respective local body inbox. Then it will be forwarded, depends upon the subject, it will be forwarded, take a different route or as per the predefined route reach the commissioner for the approval after taking the action. Then the information will reach the citizen by SMS or email. If the citizen is not happy with that, what action has taken by the local body, again he can reopen the complaint. How it will be able to know? Each official like health, engineering, administration and town planning, each head of the department, HOD will be able to monitor how many applications or how many service requests received in a particular period and how many cases are pending with each employee who is doing better. So he will be able to know how many, not only the application, even the complaint, how many complaints is received category wise, subject wise, how many spending with each inbox or desk. Then to speed up that, why this was reopened, he can visit the site or he can rework or he can satisfy the customer. That is the beauty of the grievances. Solid waste management, in addition to the collection of garbages, recently Tamil Nadu has introduced the service user charges to collect, improve the. Then citizen portal facilitate to all avail all the services. Asset booking is, the asset belongs to the local body. You can book it for a day or two, like marriage or accounts. This is actually double-ended system based on the National Municipal Accounts Manual. It has been implemented and integrated with all the revenue modules. Okay. Then asset is basically creation of asset, maintenance of asset in. So system will be able to know that what is the asset belongs to the local body, whether it's a land or building. Court cases between the citizen and the ULB, between the ULB and the nearby ULBs or other related departments. Integrated personal management will take care starting from your appointment up to the retirement. In with all the service, your service book, training, transfer, promotion, demotion, all the details are covered. Assembly questions, the questions will be received from the assembly to the respective head of the department. Then that will be captured there. Then it sent to the respective municipality or corporation for preparation of answer. Then send back that. Once it is approved, it will be placed before the assembly of the Tamil Nadu. Agenda is the raised by each section. Go to the commissioner, compiling the agenda. Then they decide what are the agenda to be placed before the council in discussion with the chairman or mayor. Then attendance of the council. Then what are the councils were approved, the points. Then follow up of those points. Send back to the respective sections, engineering section or general section or public health section. Then monitoring what happened to that agenda. It was approved that particular day. The system will really help that how many agenda points were approved and monitoring and pending with whom. Vehicle, number of vehicle, usage of vehicle, purpose of the vehicle, trip of the vehicle, route of the vehicle, which driver is assigned to that, it is again linked with the solid waste management system. Procurement, what works are related to each other. Procurement starting to a tender notice preparation, tender evaluation, purchase order, then come to the ward work, different engineering or any procurement, then delivery of item, milestone, against the milestone payment, everything will be covered in the ward. Inventory, we have a different type of inventory, general health inventory, health store, medical store, general store and water supply related, that is called engineering store, vehicle related stores. So after the purchase order, the items will be delivered to the respective store, maintain the store item, issue based on the intent to an individual or a department, maintain the stock, including fuels. Okay, file management, any organization, input is your paper, output is a paper. So maintaining of all your receipt and file register, file movement register up to the dispatch, it is incorporated. Administrator, we have two level of administrator. One is the state level administrator, another one local body level. Point here is that complete revenue in and revenue out will be recorded in each. For example, your building is assessed, the demand will be automatically reflected in your accounts. Suppose a payment is paid to the contractor, again it will be reflected here. So the account is completely integrated with all the. These are the general features. I will take 1 minute. Service oriented activity, role based success. What is this role? I am a commissioner and taking care of two municipalities. All the service requests or application will come to my inbox. Or a particular employee, what subject he is looking for, he will be able to know only those items. Workflow, because the information will pass from one desk to another. What is the advantage that I can work after the office hour, I can work even on holidays, even I can work on the travel, even when I am in the meeting, I will be able to give approval to those. So the citizen cannot wait for that. Basically, we have to maintain the time frame for each service. This was actually integrated. accounts, nation level municipal. It is in addition to login and password, IP, MAC address, and biometrics are enabled for take care of your applications. And we have introduced budget control. Without budget, we cannot make payment to any contractor or a supplier. So we have incorporated budget along with our accounts. 24/7. It is SML. Any service request raised by the citizen, you will get immediately SMS. Only it is approved, rejected also, you will get a SMS. If it is certificate, license related paper, you will get a email. I will go to next. This has been closely worked with the local fund audit department and AG audit. Thank you. Thank you.
I understand we are more.
Thank you very much.
We'll take just a minute to dwell on what we went through the technology. Dhanraj? See, it's a very complex ecosystem driving the chain management. Understand the number of stakeholders, internal, external, coming together, collaborating, pulling the string together on a 70 million population program. It was not that easy. A quick snippet of, other than the internal system, we also have been integrated to the nationwide, statewide systems along with the UTAs. It's fundamentally built on the .NET stack. It's just snapshot of our architecture. The service-oriented architecture, what we deployed on. The detailed architecture of the infra. The quantum of transactions, if you could look at, it's developing, as we started moving from single corporation or municipality to the last of thing. You could see a 10-time growth of revenue coming uniformly throughout the year. And again, needless to say, the bottom part of the transaction, it's humongous. Of course, what we derived out of deploying this high-end program. Of course, during the symposium held in Mumbai, we got the best initiative for state during the year 2017 for the urban transformation program. We stop here. Any questions now? We'll be happy to take. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dhanraj and Kannan. I guess one of the things which I was trying to say is that you saw this system. This entire system runs out of a cloud-based platform, and every municipality in the state uses that. Unlike what we're trying to do in smart cities, where each city is trying to develop their independent programs. So, as I said in the beginning, 2 decades back, we started with our EGOV program, which was called National E-Governance Plan, and we moved to mobile governance, and now I think we're moving into something called KGOV, which is a knowledge-based governance. I think next 5 years, the entire policy making is going to be based upon the data being submitted by the entire ecosystem, not just the government agencies. So on this panel, we had international partners who share their good practices and solutions, and also through a bilateral agreement with Government of India, they are willing to support this. We had the solution provider, we had a capacity building organization. With this, I guess we have about 15 minutes for questions and answers. So if any of you have any questions, please feel free to ask them to any of the panelists.
Ladies and gentlemen, you can also put up your questions on www.menti.com.
Thank you. In Tamil Nadu, what you showed just now, it covers almost all the functions of the municipality. Not really able to understand what exactly is your role. Is it merely you provide the formats, the processes, etc.? Because in some case, for instance, building plans and all that you have mentioned, you have included approvals, giving approval for layout, buildings, etc. Then do you give, it is a commissioner jobs to give the approval. What is your role? Is it merely enabling or is it given in time? This is things.
So actually, while I'll give part of the response, when Nagaraj can give the technical part of it. See, we have done this program on a turnkey basis, right from the inception to support, including the infrastructure network. We went to deploying the deep domain experts. Nagaraj comes with more than 30 years experience in the ULB process area. We worked along with the stakeholders, defining, running the requirements, process workshops, harmonization of the process, then build the solution ourselves, deploying it ULB by ULB to all the 135 bodies across the state. And coming to the building plan, there's something called the AutoDCR, which is a product by itself in the AutoCAD platform. We adopted that. It was put into the entire process flow, wherein it is a digitized approval process from the request to the final approval. It's all absolutely automated. The system checks the AutoCAD drawing submitted by the applicant, validates based on the square foot of the land, and then the possible FSI, the safety, health and environment aspect of it, and gives, if there are any non-conformities, back to the applicant, then it gets rectified until it closes to the final stage.
There is no manual intervention.
Absolutely no matter.
Sir, I will explain. As a Bhavan Sabatek, our role is the system integrator. We have provided complete hardware, computer infrastructure, installed in data center, data recovery center at Trichy. Fine. We have developed the software that is implemented. We have conducted training. We have done the data migration also. Specifically, if you are asking in the building plan, what is actually ground level gap? Suppose a citizen want to apply for a building plan approval. He will go to the municipality engaged licensed surveyor. That also the license issued by the respective local party. Now we should not go to any what you call the engineers. Okay. Because recently in Tamil Nadu they have implemented two things. That diagram should be digitized, that should be certified by the licensed surveyor, plus 100% application should be through only the web portal. Now, no physical application will be received. Now, recently, 6 months.
The size of the building.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Whatever the size of the building, even a multi-story.
No, sir, I'll come to
Not
that.
just a
I'll come to that. You are getting into the next level. For a municipality or the local body boundary, depends upon that. We have three types of people. One is CMDA within the senior city. Next one is respective municipality, the floor control, that second floor, third floor. Another town and the country plan. These three departments play the major role, giving the approval for various type of buildings. This is a major role. Plus, again, these building rules vary to metro cities, normal municipalities, town panchayat, hill station, and like household, industrial area. So it policy vary from city to city. What this application do? Once you submit that soft copy of that your plan, we have incorporated all the rules and regulations what is currently available for that particular city. So it will validate it. For example, simple rainwater harvesting, you are incorporated. Then once clear, then it push into the workflow. Town planning assistant, town planning officer, go to the commissioner. Depends upon the square feet calculation. Then the information will send to the citizen, go to the counter, pay the amount.
So the roles actually,
Yeah. So basically, we are enabler. We provide the platform. We have incorporated old policy.
So I think you were saying that the role of every individual in terms of the hierarchy still stays. It is just that the government process has been re-engineered for an automated system rather than a manual system. That's the only change. But the role is still there. The commissioner is actually approving authority and he is only giving the sanction. It is just that it is becoming automated.
One more point is another now you can delegate power for approval.
Thank you. Very brief question again with BCT. I was in Hanoi very recently, and I visited something what you have, Citizen Facilitation Center. And it was amazing that a citizen for any problem, like you have listed out several things, basically goes only to the facilitation center, and as a matter of fact there were about 50 counters or 60 counters. So you just take your number and go to any counter, give your sort of whatever application, even not only just the birth and death certificate, but even your passport, even your driving license, and many other things basically. So it is dealt with only on that single counter. The person doesn't have to move from that counter and the problem is resolved. Is it something similar that you are doing it?
It's actually one step slightly ahead. I think what you're saying, basically you don't have to even go to the counter. Your cell phone becomes that counter, or your home PC becomes that counter. So all the three screens can become the counter. Even your television can actually, which is nowadays mostly smart TVs and things. So that also becomes your counter.
That's right. That's really great in that case. But what I'm saying is the system working now?
Absolutely, sir. Sir, by the way, it's not a 9 to 5 system. It's round the clock. Anybody can transact. Any citizen, anytime, anywhere.
The official also can work.
Now, if for example, such
The system is in operation for last 3 years actually.
okay.
So it's a fully working system. Initially, this was implemented in 6 municipalities, and then it was rolled out to all the municipalities of the state. They use the same system, so no municipality had their own systems.
You mean to say the smallest town panchayat as well as the corporation?
Yes, everybody.
Now, why can't, for example, such a system be replicated by other states? There are.
I will answer that. I guess the question comes from the fact that you saw the presentation only from Tamil Nadu. So we have similar systems in the World Bank projects in Andhra Pradesh and Karnataka. And now there is a discussion at Government of India level that not just one system. So we have one system from this company. In other states there are other companies who've done similar systems. All these systems would be made available as a part of National Digital Solutions Stack, and the cities, depending upon their requirements, would have the option to select any system depending upon their context. So that is the next phase which is currently being planned, where such systems would be available for all the states and on a subscription basis, so you will have a marketplace, you will have their system, you will have somebody else's systems, and as a city commissioner you can decide which system you want to accept. But all these systems would be interoperable, which means the data from each of the systems would still be available in a single repository where you can do a context broking and use it for policy making.
Yeah, basically because I asked this because initial investment, let us say, in this work was done by the World Bank. Now, World Bank doesn't work with 28 states of India. They are also very selective in a couple of states where things are happening basically. So once the technology is taken by one state, it should be absorbed, like you are saying, by Government of India, and perhaps I think make it available to all these states much more, not say freely, but at least on a reasonable price and a cost.
I think that is what is being talked about, but just a clarification that these investments are not done by World Bank. These investments are done by respective state governments and central governments. The World Bank only lends money to the central government through Ministry of Finance, which is then routed to various state governments. So the money finally which is being invested belongs to Government of India. It is taxpayers' money which will be returned, and Government of India has now decided not only for cities. If you know, there is a national digital health blueprint which is all in the public domain for consultation. A national digital agriculture blueprint, because see these technologies of taking data from multiple places and delivering services, they are sector agnostic. You know, if you have to do data analytics, if you have right data sets, you can use it for agriculture, you can use it for health. So I am going a step further, that these kinds of solutions, once created, can not only be replicated at the national level for cities, but many of their components would be useful across domains.
That's right.
And they should be used without having to spend money so many number of times.
Please request people can go to www.mendy.com. The code is 852584. The code is 852584 and post your questions. There are only 2 or 3 questions come up.
I have a question. The question is to the Korean expert here. Giving his presentation, he said that the 100 liter of water can be collected in a day through a pin board. But what is the cost of the collection per liter?
I apologize. This case is taken from outside our network, and we only have the information. I mean, I can look into it from our own research that we did internally on this and many other cities, but I don't have that figure with me today. So.
Because unless and until we know per liter cost of the water, then only it is viable whether it is to collect water in that format or not.
Yes, it's quite a relevant question, but I don't have that data with me.
Okay, thank you.
Want to take that question?
About there is a question. What is the success rate, revenue rate?
What's the revenue increase in?
Yeah, for a smaller corporation or a municipality. For a, I will answer this. I will say really yes. How come? Because the total number of properties are fixed, the demand also fixed. Now then, how can I say this? Then yes, increased revenue rate. Compared to last 10 to 15 years, the system, the official revenue official, they were not able to trace those assessments or the owner of the builder and number of defaulters. Now, how the revenue has been increased? The system brought or changed the public mind. Now at least I can trust this municipality corporation. I can pay. What happened last 10 to 15 years? The bill collector will take money, give some receipt. You cannot trust that. When if you introduce manual operation in a system, that is not accountable 100%. There is a leakage. So the system brought change in the mind of citizen. They now start believing, trusting the local body services. What happened? Why then again? Last year 40% current collection has happened. Arrear collection was 10 to 20%. I have a data last year, 5 years data. Even 100%. Municipalities are able to achieve current demand collection is 100% or more than 90%. Arrear collection also collected from 60 to 80%. How it is going to help my municipality or chairman or mayor? At least I can know within, because the online connection, every day it is accountable. Day end operation will be completed by BRB generation. It will be deposited to the respective bank. You cannot hold the money in your municipality at all. So at least at any stage I will be know what is my financial strength. So I can, as a system integrator, as a citizen, I can say that if you place the system in your local body, surely all your pending money revenue will be collected and regular money or transaction will be accountable, so that it will help any local body to bring or take up more facilities or project into your cities? Thank you.
Adding to, I'll not go beyond 30 seconds. No, it gives a better financial visibility, cash flow. It enables better budgeting, forecasting, demand management. It avoids fraudulent transactions. End of every day, the cash flow statement is supposed to be closed, irrespective of whatever the situation is. They have to publish to the head of the state for all the 135 urban bodies. I stop this. Thanks for all the patient hearing.
One more question, last question to Albert, which is written there.
Thank you for this question. It's a good question because it's one that we always ask, no matter what country we're in. But in Korea, I would say that the public has quite a favorable attitude toward its e-governance services. And this is owing to the fact that the government takes a very citizen-centered approach. As I said, there are many examples in which we get the needs and the interests of the people first. And then the solutions are designed around that. So obviously, if the solution is something that people have asked for, then you're not going to get many people complaining. I want to give one example, though, about waste recycling. Now, in any society where this is not originally done, there's always going to be some resistance. But in Seoul, as well as many other cities in Korea, I think now it's nationwide, what they did was, or what they are doing, is that they put a fine on the waste that you discard. So depending on the type of waste, there's a different fine. So in order for you to dispose of your waste, you have to purchase specified bags. You can do it very easily, so this is one important thing, is that it's very easily accessible. You can go to any convenience store, which is just right around the block, or a supermarket, and you can purchase these bags. So accessibility, that's one thing that checks the box. And you can get small bags, you can get large bags, so it depends on your needs, your own habits of discarding waste. So if you have burnable, there's a certain bag for burnables. If you have recyclables, then there's another one for that. Plastics and cans, these don't require any bags, so people are more encouraged to recycle those things because they don't have to pay for it. So you pay for how much you dispose. That's but the convenience of the system made it so that the public very quickly became accustomed to it and also were very responsive to it in a favorable way. So that's one idea that can be implemented, I think, in many other cases. And even here in India, we have a member called Enactus IIT Delhi. Enactus is a student organization which is worldwide. Their chapter in IIT Delhi is our member, one of our institutional members. And they were launching last year at their Clean Air Summit a product that they had developed using cow dung. When we say old habits die hard, a lot of these things are due to things like culture and religion and different kind of arguments to resist change. Well, the cow dung logs are very interesting because they respect the culture and religion for the traditional funerals. The logs which are traditionally used for these funerals produce a lot of emissions, actually. It accounts for a large percentage of the air pollution in India. But through this system, because cow dung is revered here and it's considered to be clean and it's also renewable and all of these things, they were able to make these logs that would replace the traditional logs at a very low cost, which is adapted to the culture and also very accessible. So this is one of the examples of how you can change the habits step by step.
Thank you so much, Albert. And I think I would just like to add that people become supportive only once it is explained to them. And there is an example from Korea, Seoul, which was told to us by the mayor of Seoul, that when they decided to close a flyover and convert it into a public place in Seoul, which was to be demolished, the Seoul municipal government had more than 3,000 consultations with the citizens. So initially, people were not supported because they thought this will lead to traffic jams. But
the government kept on talking to them till they would allay all their concerns. So I think the supportiveness comes from the dialogue with the government, where I may initially not be supportive of something, but if I explain how this will help me as a citizen, things change. And in Korea, Seoul specifically, it took 3,000 meetings with the citizens to finally convince them that this flyover should go. With that, I think we have already overrun the time, and I will hand it over to the organizers for any announcement like that.
Hello, I have a question. Can I ask? For a country like India, with very high population and highly dense cities, semi-urban areas, the thing is that when we do the survey, the officials tend to give fake data, maybe because of tediousness and also short limited period which is there to submit the data. So are there any automated survey tools which can be used to overcome this shortcomings of the government? My question is to the panel.
Yeah, so basically I think that is a question number one, which is based upon maybe your personal experience. The fact is that nowadays the data does not come from multiple sources, from single source, comes from multiple sources, but in government hierarchy, any data which comes from the government, the person who provides that data actually approves it, and he is accountable for the accuracy of the data. So when it is submitted to the system, it is cross-checked from multiple places, but most of the time the government officers who submit data know that there will be a trail and they can be held accountable because there is some source of truth for each data set. So the chances of that in an automated system are reducing day by day, and now I guess lots of this data also comes from sensors, citizens. The next phase, I guess, in data economy, we're talking about a data ecosystem where civil society organizations and industry would also have access to the same system, and they'll be able to submit data to that. So this kind of accuracy will reduce further, but I think this notion that government people submit fake data may be based upon your experience, but it's not a generalized thing. Thank you.
Okay, there's just one last question on the screen. Mr. Tiwari, do you want to quickly answer that? Okay, done.
Yeah, okay. In any city there are sinks where you have to put money in, and there are revenue generating systems which are there. The point is, as a city manager, one has to eventually decide that what is it that where we are going to put the money into, and where I am going to accrue the money from. So if you take up this particular city, Luxembourg might be giving you transportation free, but it charges huge amount of taxes on other things. And that is where it accrues the money from to facilitate their citizens to travel for free. Luxembourg has a large amount of financial organizations which are giving them huge amount of taxes. Now the point is that are you willing to do that? And that's a decision which every municipal corporation person or a commissioner is taking on a daily basis. Where do I accrue that money from? Or otherwise they are looking at central government grants, and they are looking at other sources of revenues which might be not be available at this point of time, we being a developing country. Notion is not there. There is nothing which comes free at all. Somewhere or the other, somebody or the other is paying for it, and we have to decide who pays for what. If you wish to get this free, are you willing to tax more from the public, get them I'll give you an example. Right now, everybody, the middle class wants their 5 lakh income to be increased to 10 lakh income, which is tax free. Do you want that? I mean, we can reduce that to 3 lakhs and maybe provide transportation free of cost. But then somebody has to pay, and I think that is something which you have to think about.
You can have an example of the city of Delhi where 50% of the population, that is women population, is having free public transport. Right?
Yeah.
Similarly, the whole of the city of Delhi has free first, 20 kiloliter water every month, and similarly, electricity. But no lunches, there is no free lunch. It comes from somewhere.
So just to add to you, in Bombay, during college days, we also sometimes travel free and keep that money for lassi.
Yeah.
So ladies and gentlemen, a wonderful panel that we had here, sort of an Indo-Korean joint panel discussion. A round of applause for our panelists who were chaired and moderated by Vikas Kanungo. And we would love to felicitate them and to do the honors. At the outset, first I would like to request Mr. Shiv Kumar, Deputy Director, All India Institute of Local Self-Government, to kindly come forward and felicitate the moderator of this discussion, Mr. Vikas Kanungo. Please put your hands together for the two gentlemen. There you go, Mr. Shiv Kumar, to Vikas Kanungo. Also requesting Vinod Paliwal, Regional Director, Jodhpur, of the All India Institute of Local Self-Government, to felicitate Mr. Ganesh Kannan. There you go, Mr. Paliwal from the Veer Facility of Jodhpur, felicitating Mr. Ganesh Kannan. The Regional Director of Aurangabad, Mr. Abhijit Garge, requesting sir to do the honors and felicitate Pashim Tiwari. Please put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen. Requesting the Regional Director from Indo, Manoj Joshi ji, please felicitate Dharmaraj V. Dharmaraj ji has the brightest yellow tie in the house. And of course, for the young man who has come all the way from South Korea, Albert Ray, to be felicitated by K.R. Sharma, Regional Director from Bhopal. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together. Alright, a group photograph please. Can we join our panelists? Sir, can you join the...
No women in this group.
Alright, a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. That was a wonderful session on digital